There are a lot of albums that the general music listening public has deemed essential, be it the old school classics, the modern masterpieces, or the cult classics. There are hundreds upon hundreds of records that, if you proclaim not to have heard them in the right crowd, will elicit fairly unanimous responses of either shock or disappointment. I very often find myself on both sides of this interaction, if I'm being honest, and today I want to start a new series where I put myself on the line and bring up 5 quote-unquote essential albums that are massively revered, that music fans have close to unanimously agreed are epitomes of their genres, that I've simply never listened to for one reason or another. The catch is that I'm going to be coming back to this and making more episodes in which I not only bring up 5 more records I've yet to hear, but also I'm going to give an update on the previous episode's albums after listening to them. Because of that, this one's going to be a very short video, but it's going to open the doors to what I think will be a very fun series. Let's talk about some albums I've never heard. First off, let's talk about an artist who I've not heard a single album from, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to zero in on one record in particular, that being PJ Harvey with To Bring You My Love. At this point, I don't even know what PJ Harvey's music sounds like. I actually did hear Let England Shake years and years and years ago, but I literally remember nothing of it, so I have no frame of reference for what this is going to be going into it. I thought she made like down-tempo music in the 90s until I went to write this video and found out she actually falls into the very descriptive category of alternative rock. What I do know is that her music is widely acclaimed and super well loved in the indie scene, and so I'm definitely looking forward to checking this one out. Why this album? Well, mostly I think the album cover just looks the nicest, with Stories from the City being a close second, but it also seems to be her most popular one. At least, it's the cover I see the most. I suppose I'll find out soon enough if it lives up to that. Second is an album by an artist I absolutely adore, but I'm uncertain of him in this form. What I mean by that is I'm talking about Brian Eno's 1974 album, Here Come the Warm Jets. I absolutely love Eno's ambient records. They're some of the best music I think has ever been created, and of course he's produced some of the absolute greatest records of all time, but when it comes to his material with vocals, I honestly just don't know what to think. I remember liking Another Green World for its instrumentation, but frankly, it's been so long since I've heard it that I don't know where I stand on his vocals, except that they sounded similar to Bowie. With that said, I do know that this is a massively acclaimed record, and one that's seen as a pretty heavy rock innovator, so I'm definitely ready to be shown why I should be paying attention to the rest of Eno's work. Speaking of innovative and weird music, I've also never heard Boredoms at all. They're a Japanese experimental psych band that, to my knowledge, releases music that sounds alien and unlike anything else, while still being absolutely gorgeous. I actually did listen to about half of the first song on the record I picked for today, Vision Creation New Sun, before turning it off because I realized it was the exact type of album I wanted to listen to with my partner first. It was so lush, and I can only imagine how it would sound with their speaker system in their really nicely decorated room. It's an album I think is going to turn out to be very special for us, so I'm really glad I have this excuse to finally pull the trigger on it. Next, on the topic of experimental music that sounds nothing like anything else, but this time maybe skipping out on the gorgeous part of the last album, that would be The Ascension by Glenn Branca, who, to my understanding, is a composer of chaos, who painstakingly devised this album for 6 noise rock musicians, including himself, to perform. Everything I've heard said about it tells me that it's going to be one of the noisiest, coolest rock records I'll ever hear, and honestly, most of my friends have this listed as one of their favorite records ever, so I have very high expectations, and I highly doubt they'll be disappointed. Why haven't I heard this yet? Well, to put it simply, it's not on Spotify where I live. I'm that basic. I listen to plenty of music that isn't on Spotify all the time, but for some reason, this one really just felt like too much of an inconvenience to bother with. Well, no more. I'm gonna listen to it, and I'm gonna get back to you, I promise. And finally, an album that this holiday I felt especially guilty for not having heard, and that's Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots by The Flaming Lips. What's embarrassing is that I literally have everything lined up to have heard this. Like, I own it on CD. Everyone around me, even friends of mine who aren't into music in the same way as me, have told me it's an album I'm gonna love and that I need to hear. And this Christmas, my aunt and uncle came from the States, and while we were passing around the acoustic and jamming, the two of them played some of the songs from this record, and it sounded so nice. I literally don't know why I haven't heard it. I even love Soft Bulletin, but I know that now is the time, and I'm finally giving myself the push to give it a go. Now, this is the part where I would start talking about the albums I said I haven't heard in the previous video, but obviously I won't be doing that since this is the first in the series. Instead, I want you guys to do my homework for me. I'm gonna link my Rate Your Music page in the description, and you guys can search through that and tell me what essential albums I've not heard yet. I'll be reading the comments on this one and taking plenty of notes, so give me as many as you can find. If this series works well, I would absolutely love to branch out into movies and games with the same prospect, because I have a lot more ground to cover in those mediums, I think. That's all for me this time. Shout out to my patrons on screen, and look forward to the next episode of this series. It should be sooner than later.